Good morning, my name is Tamara and I want to show you today how I created these beautiful roses. With this particular rose right here, I started out with a very vanilla cardstock from Stampin' Up! And I used Poppy Parade ink on the edges, and I also used Crushed Curry ink. With this particular flower here, I used Pool Party cardstock and the soft suede ink on the edges. So let's get started. To begin with, we're going to start out with 3 punched flowers. I used the Stampin' Up! Fancy Flower Punch. After you get these 3, you're going to begin by cutting. Your first one will stay whole, except you will cut one slit right just to the center, so you end up with that. Your next one, you want to cut at an angle to the center and an angle to the other, so you're going to end up with 2 petals on one and 3 on the other. On your last one, you're going to cut out 1 petal, and I do it at an angle so I get a nice petal. Just cut into the center. Then you'll end up with 1 petal and 4. So you're going to make the flower, you'll have 1 petal, 2 petals, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, to get the coloring like I did, I started out by adding the yellow to the center. So I started out with the centerpiece, and to get the yellow in the middle, I just went along the edges, and then I put it down, and I just get a little more yellow in there because I want to see the yellow when I look into the flower. And on the centerpiece, I do both sides because you can see down inside of the flower, and you want to see that gorgeous colors mixed together. And then I just continue on the same way, but I concentrate the yellow down into the center, and then I lay it down and I just daub a little more yellow very lightly because I want it real subtle and I want it to blend nicely. Once I do that, with all the petals, I add in the Poppy Parade, and with that, hold this, I just lightly dab the edges. I used a sponge for this. I ran out of daubers, but I found I liked the way the sponge worked better anyway. And with the center, I did both sides because it seems to show up a little bit. With the rest of them, I just do the one side. So you just go along the edges on all your petals the same way, and your petals will end up, here's the bottom one, your 4 petal, your 3, your 2, and your 1. Okay. Now once these are all colored, I went ahead and did this step in advance to save time. You want to start gluing them together, and I found what works best is I use a knitting needle. I have a real thin knitting needle. It's 45 millimeter. With the centerpiece, I take and lay the needle right on there, and I press against there and just kind of curl. So you curl that petal around where you end up like that, because you're going to want to take that ends and you're going to want to put a dab of glue right there and glue them. Now with the second one, I take the edges and I bend in slightly. I still use the needle because it just bends it nicely. You don't get any creases that way. And you're going to take and you're going to bend on over, and you're going to add a touch of glue there. And I use tacky glue because it seems to stick better. I've tried it with my snail and it doesn't stick as nicely. This will dry clear. You won't see it at all. If you just use a little something to hold it, I just use a little clip and I'll hold it together while you continue on with the other ones. Every flower petal, I do the same thing. This is the 4 petal. I curl just slightly. That way, whenever I put them together, you're going to end up a little cone shaped. So I continue doing that with all of them. And the one that's cut in the middle, you're just going to fold over a little bit so you get a little bit of a cone shape with that as well. It's not a lot on the bottom one. You just want to overlap and glue those together. With the 3 petal one, same thing. I start curling just a slight bit. Doesn't take a lot. And then it makes it easier to go over here and put a touch of glue and glue those together right there. So, in the interest of time, like I said, I went ahead and did this step. So these are the pieces all glued. Here's my bottom piece. You can see how it's got a little bend or a little bit of a cone shape to it. So the next piece that will go in will be the 4 petal piece, and on the bottom of each you've got to cut a slight little slit in the bottom, just barely trim off the bottom just a bit so it sits down in there a little nicely. But before I start sticking them together, one very important step to get these roses so nice and real looking is to take the same knitting needle and you want to grab the edge of your petal and just give a little curl. I get right on the end, put my thumb on there and just give a little curl. And I do that all around on every petal. And you want to do that with every layer before you stick them together. It just takes a minute, just bends them around, but it makes them look so realistic once you're done if you take this extra step. I actually like the flowers both ways, but it depends on the type of project you're doing and what the outcome is that you're trying to achieve. The 2 petal one's a little more difficult. You want to try to do it without bending, but you want to open them out because that's how a rose naturally does it. The centerpiece I don't do anything to. I leave it. So we have our petals all curled, and we just start gluing the layers together. I add the tacky glue into the center. I just add a drop in there. And then when you place your petal, you want to get it to where they're offset. So put a petal where there's in between the other two petals. While it's still wet, you can turn it around and get it just placed in the right area that you want. Once you get that one, you'll go with your next one. And with this one as well, I had to trim slightly on the very bottom for it to fit down in there nicely. It would have stuck out too tall had I not done that. So now you just stick another dab of glue in there and offset those petals. Give it a little push. Now your two petal piece, same thing. I cut just a little bit. You can see there's a little hole there. I cut a little bit off the bottom. Stick a little more glue. And this glue, the Aleene's glue, it dries clear, so you won't see it. Now see, that seems like it sticks up just maybe a little bit too much. Let's turn it around. No, I kind of like it like that. So if you just keep turning it, you'll get it to where you like the way it looks. And so far so good. So now with my centerpiece, with the centerpiece ones, here's two centers. You can see I trim like 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch off the bottom of that, because otherwise it just pops up too high and that doesn't look good. So that's just going to go down inside. There's a little glue in there. I'm going to add a touch more so I keep it secure. And you just press it slightly, and there you go. A beautiful, very realistic looking rose. Here are my other ones. I love them. I hope you enjoyed my video. Thanks for stopping by. Have a great day. See ya.